I want to talk about something tonight. It's kind of it's a very personal topic, certainly, but it's when you find yourself in custody and you're accused of something or you've done something, whatever it may be. At that point, there's a crime that may have been committed, and to that end, there's something called a crime story, and so that's what I want to talk about tonight. So, crime story is something that's used in a lot of things. It's used for probation and parole. It's used for the prison system, for the jail to classify you. Those are all things I think that I've talked about before, as far as probation and parole and the parole board and those kinds of things. I want to talk about more, I guess, my personal feelings about how the crime story, it's such a weird concept. I mean, if you're an average person of any kind of morals or scruples or anything, you know that what you may be doing to get arrested or run from the police or breaking the law, things that you don't have to be told that everything is a law or something that's against what you should be doing. I think on a small level or even a large level, you probably know that what you may be doing could be wrong, and it could be illegal, and it could get you in trouble, and subject to all the things that the justice system brings with it. But a lot of how you internalize that and deal with that is the thing that can cause other effects that'll last long after you're released. And it certainly lasted for me. I've been out for 6 years, and the crime occurred in 2009, so 11 years ago, almost 12 years ago. So it's something that lingers and lays there and stays there, and it doesn't really ever relent or go away. And that if that's not handled correctly, and by no means am I saying that I am the expert in handling something that you've done that weighs on your mind and bothers you the best, because I'm not. I haven't handled what I've done and what I've went through and what I've put other people through the best. It's a struggle every day to deal with the effects of what I caused, and it's something that a lot of people, even very close to me, either I don't think they understand it. So there's that, I guess, the immediate standoff as far as them not knowing what I go through, and what I think about, and how I feel about the whole situation in my life since all this has happened. And then there's people that think other things that are maybe more malevolent. They're bad, that whatever. I can't even think about all the things that they could be thinking. I'm not going to go through all that, but I can say with absolute, total surety that what I did and the crimes that I committed have affected me. They affect me every single day, every single minute. It's never more than about that far away from me and from my mind, and it doesn't ever go. So all of that said, the only thing that I can think of to do is to learn from that. And there's some ways that I can think and I can say that I've learned from that, and that I'm better having done that and having learned those lessons that I feel that I've drawn from what's happened. Because when something happens in your life, whether it's you miss a light bill, or you are involved in a car accident, or make a mistake at work, whatever it may be, you can be mad and fume and go on for years and years and years about that light bill or that mistake at work or whatever it may be, or you can take the lesson from it, draw some things out of it that you can do better, and do those things better. And that's hopefully what people do. And that isn't always what people do. And that's the problem, is that our system isn't really geared toward making you as the offender, or the person who may be the offender in a given situation. It's not geared toward making them better. There's some things you can do of yourself to make that happen, but it doesn't always work that way. And the system certainly isn't going to drive that or force that on you. The entire time that I was in prison, I was never recommended one single program because I didn't have a drug issue. And that affected a lot of things. I was still there for a crime. I wasn't any less guilty than anyone else there. But the parole board in Kentucky and the classification, the state didn't have anything for me. I feel like there's other places, other states that do a lot of things better. And, the thought is, well, if you can make something better, then do it, right? But that doesn't always happen. It isn't always the best thing to do, maybe. And the way I mean that is that if you have a better prison system, then things might change. And, whatever conspiracy theories you may subscribe to, I'm not really sure, but I know and I've seen that there is certainly a lot of money in prisons. There's a lot of money in bail. There's a lot of money in the court systems. There's a lot of money in locking people up. It's there. The evidence exists. So I think the prison systems could do better. I think they could. Is it feasible to really individually tailor an improvement plan or goals or things like that to match every offender's needs? No, it's not. I'm not unrealistic in that fact, but you have a lot of people that are in prison that are there for a crime that has a victim, we'll say, whether it's, the prostitute that's in jail or prison. Some places they can lock you up and put you in prison for that. I know Nevada has a program where if you're a prostitute and you have HIV, then they can lock you up for longer terms in prison for that. It's not just a simple prostitution kind of a thing, but other states, different things mean more or less than other states. So you have a victim, and then you could argue that in that situation, that hypothetical situation, that the offender, the prostitute, the woman is the victim, or the man, depending on the situation. But you could argue that they're a victim. You could argue that the people that they are involved in business with will say that they're a victim. They're taking whatever diseases may be present back to their families, to their wives or husbands or other significant people in their lives, and that. So you have to really kind of get at who the victim is in the situation. You have other cases that are a little more cut and dry. You have someone that robs people because he likes to rob people. He doesn't do it for drug money. He doesn't do it for drugs. Maybe he's never done a drug a day in his life. He just likes robbing people. Well, how do you fix that? How do you deal with that? When I was at a halfway house in Newport, we had a guy that was a drug dealer. He was a hardcore. He got high mentally, I think, off of the power and the control that came from holding drugs in front of someone's face and seeing what they would do to that for that drug or that substance. That was his drug, and that's what he enjoyed. And he'd never done drugs before. He said it's his story. He can tell it how he wants. But listening to his version of events, that was his crime, bread and butter. That's what he did. He said it wasn't until he was released to another halfway house where part of that program was they went to the local morgue and saw the overdose victims. And they worked for the county in Cincinnati. This is up in Cincinnati area, but he was in a halfway house in Ohio when he's talking about this. Then he was able to see the effects of what he'd done. And so his crime story is going to read that he's a drug dealer. He sells drugs. He's been arrested for possession or trafficking or distribution, whatever the charge may be. He doesn't have a drug history per se. If he self-reports it or if he's not caught with any kind of possession amount, then the state's going to give him whatever they're going to give him as far as programs and recommendations. But has that person really ever learned until he came to that point? And that's where the crime story really comes into play, is what you did and your admission and your ownership of that situation, whatever it may be, whether you stole drugs from your ambulance service employer, or you beat somebody up and robbed them, or you broke into a warehouse or a building and stole copper to get drugs and drug money. So I think jurisdictions can really look at better ways to deal with people on a more common sense approach. And that's something that, when I was in prison, I tried suggesting something at the invitation of someone I came to meet through prison to have a victim offender reconciliation program. This lady, I don't want to say her name, but if she sees this, she knows who she is, and I'm very thankful having met her. Over the years, there were several Christmases that she was the only person I ever got a Christmas card from that year. So that means a lot. It's something I've remembered. It's something I still have. I still have those cards. But she had started a program like that in Ohio, and it was very successful. Kentucky was less than they were flat out resistant to it. It wasn't less than hesitant. They were resistant to it because they said they had tried it before, and they had some different issues with it. And some of it I can understand, but some of it is just we don't want to do anything better, I think. And I think when you deal with things like recrimination and rumination, and these are $5 words, but basically it's you do have a conscience, you are a person, and you do think about what you did, and you're terribly, terribly, terribly sorry for what you did. But no amount of sorry is going to undo that, and it's not going to stop it, and it's not going to make that thing, whatever it may have been, whether that was that robbery or that death or that family that was killed because you were drunk driving for the 5th time in a week, it's not going to bring them back. So what can you do to learn from that, whether it's before you're arrested, after you've been arrested, once you go to custody, to jail or prison, whatever it may be, the entire time while you're there, because you're going to have a period of time that a lot of people say is pretty much stunted growth. You're pretty much in a holding pattern. You're stalled in life. And whether it's a year, whether it's 6 years, or whether it's 20 years or more, you're going to have a period where you're not going to be interacting with the most good people. You're not going to have the best experiences in life. You're not going to have access to psychological help, to mental help, to your family, your friends, those kinds of things. Those are all going to be strained. It gets into a lot of different things as far as what prison is and how you internalize it and how you deal with it. And then you have the release part once you get out. And that's when hopefully a lot of these things will start happening and you can maybe make some amends, if possible. It may not always be possible. In my case, it hasn't been possible at all. It just hasn't been possible. I've wanted to. I've tried made efforts to do that. It hasn't happened. And I don't think it's ever going to happen, honestly. Doesn't mean that I don't feel that way. It doesn't mean that I don't want the people that have been affected by all this, my own family, my wife's family, certainly my wife, our daughter. I want them to be whole again, and that's never going to happen. That's something that I don't like. I don't like it at all, and I can't deal with that some days. I got a new family now. I don't want to screw it up, and I love them very much. My girlfriend and my son. We have a little over a year now. He was born September 2019, and he's a really good mix of both of us. But he looks a lot like me. He acts a lot like me, and some of it's bad, some of it's good. But he's ours, and I've seen what can happen when a family gets blown apart, when someone's actions cause a family to just get destroyed, multiple families to get destroyed. And I don't ever want to be a cause of that again. And that's one thing that I've learned. Another thing is I overanalyze. I was very analytical before, I thought. I overanalyze everything now. I break everything down before it ever happens. I think about the consequences, and that is something that it slows things down. It makes me a little bit more indecisive about certain situations. But the decisions I do make, I follow through with it. And I'm a lot more cautious now with a lot of different things, whether it's cleaning tools or driving or whatever it may be. I've learned a lot of lessons from this whole experience. And that's it. To me, that's the best way that I can honor Ashley. I can do what's best for the next person that may be around me, is that they're not going to be affected or harmed by anything that I would do. That to me is the most important lesson. I've got a chance to present my ethics presentation here in a few days on Friday. This as I say this, today's Tuesday.
Power off.
I want to, I want to do that. I want those people, those police officers in this situation, and those firefighters and EMTs and paramedics, I want them to hear what I have to say. And while the presentation that I have may be geared toward EMS, pre-hospital nurses mainly, police officers do things that get them in trouble that's work-related, and they think they can do it because it's okay, or they're not going to hurt anybody, and they do. Firefighters, same way. I'm not saying that all first responders are bad, because they're not. Most of them, the great majority of them are very good people. I was one of the bad ones in the last few months. At any rate, your crime story is something that is going to shape what's going to happen to you in prison. It's going to shape your life after prison, and it's going to shape how you feel about yourself and what you do with your life after all of these things are done, and you're left with, who am I and what should I do in life? And hopefully the question you ask yourself is, how can I help people? Whether it's going to work every day and providing for yourself and your family, or it's doing a presentation, or it's getting your record expunged and being able to go back to doing things you may want to do, whatever it may be, do what you can to shape that crime story. And I'm not saying lie. What I am saying is to tell the truth when it comes to that, so that you can deal with the issues that you have to deal with. Only you know what those are going to be. It's up to you to be honest, and you have to start somewhere and have to start sometime. And that was my thoughts on crime story, and some tangential things there certainly, but I think they're kind of related. If you have any questions or comments, please type them down below. I will definitely get back. Thanks. Be careful. Take care, everybody.